open the shades. No, that'll silhouette. That'll silhouette.
Yeah, that'll be even worse.
We'll just go with what you got.
You want me to?
What do you think, Matt? Well,
Yeah,
a
that's
little
better. That's over to the side like that. That's actually better.
Yeah.
A little bit more to the side. No, the other way.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Welcome to
Yeah, that's better.
M2Techcast.
That is better.
A live internet radio show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another edition of the M2Techcast right here at mitechnews.tv, Facebook Live, and a whole bunch of other places.
Yes, indeed. And so we have Lisa Kujawa on with us again from LTU because actually I guess today is the first day of classes at LTU. And I'll let Matt take over from here, but I'm just sort of setting you up here. A lot of colleges are going, some of them are going all virtual, some are a mix of virtual and in class. And we were chatting just before we began, and I think that's you guys. You're a mix, right?
Yes, we are. So thank you so much, Mike and Matt, for having me. So Lawrence Tech today was the first day of classes, and our undergrads are here on ground in their classes. Some adaptability, maybe if they're going to use Zoom, the instructor might, if they got 40 people in the class, have 15 come at one point, the other Zoom and back and forth. The grads are all online with the studios and labs being on ground. And that's something we learned in the spring when we went online very quickly, that theory and practice matters, that hands-on experience. So that's why the grads actually wanted that to continue.
Yeah, and I think Lawrence Tech is in a little bit different place, isn't it, than a big state school, because we don't have those big freshman lectures with like 400 people in them. Like the biggest class you're going to find at Lawrence Tech is what, maybe 25 or 30 people?
Yeah, great point, Matt. So what our people did, so basically in March, we went fully online, and that was so easy for the spring semester because of the fact we're technological with our laptops, which is a huge advantage for our students. And then we started to do everything virtually. We started to bring students back. And so, yeah, our people went around to each and every classroom, took the first row out, social distanced the rest. There are stickers everywhere so students know where to sit, where not to sit. We have policies about masks. Our faculty are wearing shields. Excuse me, I apologize. And the classrooms have been designated. If there is larger ones, then the classes are being moved to those larger rooms. So everything actually has worked out perfectly well. Everyone's organizing and helping and supporting. And the most and the best is the interest of the health of our students and our staff and faculty. So I think all of that is moving forward.
And if someone I'm sorry, Matt, but if someone should get sick, are you going to make them quarantine, or what are you going to do?
So yes, so for example, we did have 2 students already. One was not here yet. One was here, so they're being quarantined. We have 1 floor in the residence hall for quarantine. We have an app now our students use and staff as of today gives us a perspective of, did they test positive? Did they test negative? Do they have these symptoms? So we're monitoring that. The residence halls, when the students come to get their food, it's takeout only. If they sit, it's still in a box. They don't get to touch everything. And we are working with the Oakland County Health Department related to trace and testing. So we have a variety of precautions in place. I think we started early, and because the president really was pushing, making sure we can open, because so many of our parents, both for new and current students, were emailing the president early on saying, please, please, please open.
Was it just because, I'm sorry, because it was just because they would have to, manage the kids at home or something? Or?
So that's funny, Mike. I had a football dad who said, I told him, get in the car, you're going back.
Yeah.
But so that was one of it. But the other thing is that, again, I think everybody wants their moment, and the parents want their kids back to get that moment, to continue on the path, whatever path they were in. But they want it to happen with them socializing, with them being educated here. And so really, we're doing the best. I think we're doing so great to further this commitment of ours to the students and the parents.
Well, and we've had some of our faculty members also heavily involved in producing PPE, right? I know the dean of the College of Business and Information Technology. We've got pictures of him making face shields. I've got one right over there, in fact. So I mean, but they've been involved and very active in this process, right?
Absolutely. So our accelerator, they started making face masks for people in and around the Southfield community, as well as business and industry, as well as Matt saying, the Dean of Business and Information Technology, same thing. Every college is adapting based on the culture to their student, but at the same time with the idea that we have to social distance, we have to make sure we continue to maintain the health, and that people follow the rules. And the president just walked around today, as he always does, and he said, I'm very happy everybody's doing what they need to do.
Good. Okay. So talk a little bit about the LTU Safety Committee. What is it? Who's on it? How often does it meet? What have those meetings been like?
So the president added the safety committee immediately in March when the shutdown happened. And it's people within the faculty ranks, within the administration staff. And so they've been working since then, preparing for today. What do we do? So for example, early in April, they went from each college and set a kind of specific style classroom for each college so that they could see how this social distancing effect would happen with their students. Then that's when we started making the PPE. We came up with rules, regulations. I think the best thing the president did was communicate every 2 weeks with not only our students, the campus community, our faculty, our alums, to just keep that ball going down, that so rumors didn't continue. This is what's happening. This is where we're going. This is why we're doing it. And he's still doing, he did one last email on Friday, which was, hey, we're in it together. Let's go, you know?
Now,
Sounds
did
good.
you, when you guys were just totally virtual in the spring, did you learn what works and what doesn't work from that experience?
Mike, I'm so glad you said that. So first, we went virtual orientation for new students for the fall, okay? We're right now, for incoming freshmen, 13% ahead of where we were last year. And I believe one of the greatest things Zoom did for us was parents got to be with financial aid a lot longer and university advising a lot longer. And so that sense of how do I financially pay for this? What's the financial path for me? What's the courses my students taking? How does that affect this and that? And I believe those two areas, in essence, supported our growth in FIDIACs.
Okay. And FIDIAC stands for people
Sorry,
who are
first time in any college. So my point was when there were a lot of students in Michigan saying, I'm going to rethink my first choice. When Michigan closed last week, we got maybe 8 students immediately in 3 days from Michigan, because at the end of the day, no matter what the cost of education, the experience has to be something that you truly, truly want, and it'll benefit you both personally, professionally, your mind, the kind of character you want, and overall what kind of person you want in a career. So I think our size, how fast we adapted, our communication benefited us immensely.
Well, I imagine you put the kibosh on parties and things like that, right? I mean, how are you going to handle that part? That is college after all, right?
Right. So Mike, it's a great question. So the other day, Dr. Mogul, as Matt knows, he's a walker. He likes to walk around and talk to people. So he saw like 7 kids in the atrium sitting too close to each other. They were like, hey, Dr. Mogul. He walked down there. He went over there and he said, are you glad you're back? And they said, yes, we're so glad. Thank you. He says, okay, then we all have to do our part. You got to separate here, move apart. And so his point to us was, it's everybody. All of us have to help each other. Otherwise, it can't just be this is the student's fault or this is our fault. So we're trying as best as we can to mitigate whatever happens, knowing something is going to happen.
College students are college students. I
right.
know what my days were like. Of course, that was back when we rode dinosaurs, but I don't think that's changed all that much, right?
Right.
Now, from what I see, it hasn't changed all that much, but that is one of the things we unfortunately had to do this fall, was basically cancel all of the big lectures and colloquia and other programs that colleges and universities typically normally do, because we can't have 300 people sitting in the auditorium. I mean, we just can't. So all of those events, to the extent that they're going to happen this fall, are going to be virtual. And unfortunately, we also had to put the kibosh on fall sports, right?
Well, some, I mean, it's just some of them are just going to be pushed back. So we're still going to do it. And so the interesting thing is too, again, you try to find these positive things, as Mike said, in this process. So one of the things was that we had our first virtual recruitment event for next recruitment cycle. We had over 100 people on that. And frankly, way more from states and countries than we ever had before. So these are some of the things we have to take advantage of and kind of go with in this process.
Okay. So yeah, some things are actually more convenient when they're online.
It's true.
Some things you want to be in person. Other things, I think one of the things we've learned through all this is that a lot of things can be done virtually. Nothing really replaces face-to-face interaction, but there are some things that really work well in this meeting.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. And the other thing is just to be that positive approach to looking at things, doing things differently, and saying we're going to get to that goal that we have. And so I think that's what we're trying to teach the students too.
Well, and when it comes to football, frankly, I had somebody mention to me that it's going to be kind of nice to have the weather getting nicer during the season if we play in the spring, rather than having it getting worse throughout the season. So you freeze your keister off by November, but we're going to start out freezing and warm up gradually, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that. Go ahead.
That's the tricky part, is no one knows the what's next part. No one knows when the vaccines are going to come, how quickly they're going to get disseminated. We have Fred Brown on at the end of the show, and he always scares the pants off us because he's an epidemiologist. But this may be the new normal for a couple of years. Who knows? So.
And Mike, that's the point that we're trying to say is Dr. Markgrove could have said, we're going to shut down completely, we're going to stay online. But he felt there was an opportunity for us to show our uniqueness as a private technological university, and that's what I believe we're doing. And yes, was something going to happen? Is someone going to get tested positive? All of that is yes, probably, most likely. But how, if we can approach it in a way that provides us that opportunity to showcase who we are, let's just do it. And that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, got about a minute left, so I'll let you guys do the shameless plug part. Go ahead.
Okay, Lisa, if people want more information about attending Lawrence Technological University, where do they go?
I would go to admissions@ltu.edu. You can make appointments. Here's the other thing. We have tours every day, and those things are packed. And we have to social distance them. So we're ready and willing to see students, ltu.edu. You can apply, you can inquiry. There's buttons that pop up immediately. And we're happy to have you look at who we are and what we are and showcase the greatest private technological university, frankly, in Michigan, if not the world. And
well, we just made the list of 386 best colleges in the United States. And
that's right.
There's an awful lot of pretty famous names that didn't. So I was glad to see that.
Yeah, we rock.
Okay. Well, you can also go to ltu.edu and just enter in the search bar future students, and you'll find a whole wealth of resources there. Yes. Lisa Kiawa, assistant provost?
Associate provost.
Associate provost for enrollment management and outreach at Lawrence Technological University. Once again, that's ltu.edu. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Okay.
You too, Lisa.
And we'll be back in just a minute with another segment of the M2Techcast.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University? Everything. Great labs and studios, supportive professors, plus a full campus life, NAI athletics, and all the software you need to succeed. Be smart. Be more. At LTU,
I've known you so long as Rick, and I know you're Governor Snyder. What do you just call you Rick or Governor Snyder or what?
Rick's fine.
Any university in America.
I mean, I knew you before you were governor.
Counselors,
that's right.
And coaches.
And I think when I was working at Cranes, I think I was one of the first people to interview you when you came back from Gateway and you were set up in that office in the First National Bank building in downtown Ann Arbor.
You're correct, Matt. That's a true statement.
Yeah, you came back with a bunch of venture capital and founded Ardesta and did a whole bunch of things.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are
Yeah, you were one of the first. So it's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Now we're working together. How about that? Working on a commercial here.
More at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with a familiar face in another segment of the M2Techcast. We have with us today former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. And Rick, I gather you want to talk about entrepreneurship today.
Yeah, well, it's great to be with you. I mean, I've worked with both you guys long before I was governor, so it's great to continue this dialogue. And if you think about it, entrepreneurship is something we really need to encourage during this challenging period. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed all our lives in so many ways. But one of the things we have to look at is one of the solutions is innovation. And that's where we need tech entrepreneurs to continue on in so many different areas. And there are new unique challenges that they face even in their positions, but we need to work through these because innovation is the answer. I mean, that's where we need a vaccine, for example.
Yeah, hopefully soon, but I don't know when that's going to be. We have Fred Brown, who's an epidemiologist, also lives in Ann Arbor. He comes on in our fourth segment today, and he's coming on every week to kind of keep us up to speed because he's working with a number of states and governments around the world, and so he's pretty informed. But it seems like, yeah, the vaccine's the real key to getting back to whatever the new normal is going to be.
Yeah, but there's a lot of pieces to this. It was interesting as the COVID crisis really started happening and we started seeing how serious it was. There were some good innovation opportunities even coming out of that, though. I had the opportunity to work with some U of M doctors, for example, that were working on a device called VentMe, which is about how you could double the capacity of a ventilator by safely splitting it. And that was exciting to see. And that's something that was done out of necessity. I mean, they were on the front lines of seeing terrible things going on. And the question is, how do you do something about it? And they weren't the only ones. Actually, I had the opportunity to get involved in a couple forums. And Mike, you've been involved in a lot of those kind of forums where you bring people together with new ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And as you know, it's one of those things that many of these ideas may not end up going anywhere on their first pass, but you never know. They may come back years later or they may have value in a different setting. And that's what we're seeing today. I mean, like we're doing this video conference. I mean, that used to be a rare thing. How many video conferences do you do a day now?
Yeah.
Too many. I do 3 shows a week. So this is one, and I do one on Wednesday and one on Thursday. And I'm not going to fill in Tuesday and Friday because I need a little downtime. But yeah, this is the new normal for communications. But everything is moving to video right now. I mean, I read all the studies on social media. And if you're not doing video, you're not being seen on social media. So you got to do it.
Yeah, well, it's important to have that interaction. And again, that's where it's the next best thing to being there in person. And that's what we all found. I mean, my biggest challenge now, though, is there's so many different services. How many different applications have you had to download depending on who you're talking to?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Zoom is just the most popular, but there's dozens of other ones, too.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about how entrepreneurs get financed, how innovators get financed. I know back in the 90s when I was a finance writer at Cranes, Mary Kramer asked me to write, to do a Cranes list of all the venture capital firms in Michigan. And I told her, well, the good thing about that is that it won't take up much space in the magazine because back then there wasn't much in the way of venture capital. Things have gotten from awful to at least mediocre, maybe more than mediocre now in Michigan, would you say? I mean, what's the current status of angel investing in venture capital in Michigan?
Well, I think Michigan's come light years. I mean, we've come a long way. Are we California or Silicon Valley or Boston yet? No. But as a practical matter, I think we're clearly kind of in that next tier of jurisdictions and states in terms of what's going on. And it's something that takes time to build. And that's good economic development. I've been doing economic development work and venture work for decades in some capacity. And it takes 10 and 20 years. That's what people don't realize. It doesn't happen overnight because it's not about having just personalities. Like you said, Matt, it was a short list back then. I was on that list. It was that short. And I think you probably could have had, a couple inches of lines and that was about it. But now if you go, there's a significant list Because it's really, I define it as how do you go from the founder effect, where you had people doing it, to actually having it have its own organic life. And it's not dependent on people anymore, but there's an ecosystem that's been created. And we still need to nourish that. If you look at, we've had some great gains, particularly in the med bio field, that's done very well, and IT. I mean, these are traditional strengths of Michigan.
Yeah, and it's been interesting. For instance, in terms of angel investor groups, there's more than a dozen now, and the Michigan Angels, which is, of course, based in Ann Arbor, has more than 150 members. And when I left the West Coast in 1995 to come back to work at the Free Press, like Matt said, we didn't have there might have been one or two groups. And then, of course, we've got a lot of venture capitalists that at least have an office or a one-person office or something here in the state, which is, I mean, like you say, in 20 years, it's come a long ways.
Yeah, you put it in context, because one of the things I was proud to be part of before I became governor was helping create Ann Arbor Spark. And if you think about it, that was just a number of us coming together. The university was a great partner, starting an organization that now I haven't been involved with them directly for a number of years. I go to their programs when I can, but if you look at it, they've become a major force in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation. And it's not just the Ann Arbor area. I mean, there's good things. Detroit's comeback has really caused a creation there. Grand Rapids has done fabulous things. And Invest UP is a group that came along and are now doing some exciting things up in the Upper Peninsula. So it's not exclusive. I mean, the main thing we need to continue to do, though, is keep the networking going. Because, again, too often we think we're on an island, and we need to reach out and figure out how to work together. And we need to continue creating more and more serial CEOs. In addition to the funding thing, we're now getting mature enough where you have people now that have taken and grown companies. They've had those companies get acquired, and they've done it over again. I mean, you got Tim Mayleben with Aspirion. He's been involved in a couple of Aspirions. You got guys like Jeff Williams that have done 3 or 4 companies. Those are great resources that we need to replicate more often, of people that show that skill set of they're really good at saying, okay, you got a company in this position. They know how to grow.
Yeah, Doug Sung would be another one. He's done quite well for himself over the years. So made a few bucks off his last deal.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, that's where you find the kind of the alumni club. So it was great. I watched other jurisdictions do this, and we probably should do more of it, where you sort of look at the friends and family network that have sort of gotten created. So what companies then spun off how many different future founders and entrepreneurs, because they had the opportunity to learn in one place, they go do it again.
Yeah. So what are you doing these days? Are you investing? Are you starting companies? I know you did a decompression there for a bit, and I think you got that out of your system, but what's happening next?
Yeah, I'm just helping people. That's my title, is I like to say I'm a helper now. And so I'm helping a couple young companies in terms of doing some work with them. I'm actually writing a Thursday column now myself. I just put it up on Facebook and LinkedIn to share some ideas. And the other part is, when I finished being governor, you had that list of things you sort of put off for years. So I'm about 80% done with a list of items I never thought I would get to, which is pretty good. So I'll catch up on that and then find some new things to do.
And can I have a couple examples of the things that you'd put off?
Actually, simple things I put off is a lot of it is just organizing your life, Matt. I mean, how often do you have all these files and records and stuff like that? The other joke is actually I got Sue, we're updating our estate plan, because it's that old thing, you never think of that, because I last looked at it was from 1999.
Yeah.
So our oldest child was 11 and our youngest is now 24. So I think we need to get up to date.
Yes, that's true.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think the state of technology is in Michigan, as one who's been an angel investor, a venture capitalist? You've the former CEO of Gateway Computer. Yes, we remember all that stuff.
Former magazine publisher too, which is
magazine publisher.
I remember Small Times. That was a great publication.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
So, how would you assess where we're at, and what do we still need?
Yeah, the part we still need is a technology we've always been strong at. What we need to do are continue to grow again, these serial CEOs I've talked about, it's continuing growth and just letting people continue to develop and encouraging young people to be innovators. I mean, we're still getting around to that culture of saying it's not just about having founders, but having teams built. And so we need to work on building more teams of people that can bring good marketing skills, other skills, and we need to be louder and prouder. I still contend we're not loud enough about our successes. I mean, you mentioned Doug and Duo. That was wonderful for the state. I mean, that really helped us, put another mark on that national VC map. So we need to get out and tell our story more. Renaissance Venture Capital is a great illustration of a fund-to-fund that I think has done good about promoting venture capital in Michigan in so many different ways. My old partner, Chris Reisig and Jeff Reinfeld are both there. So we need to continue that path. So there's not a light switch kind of answer. It's more watching this continuing development and having great places like Detroit come back, continue, and places where people want to come and build companies.
I know one of the things that I think you're on the tail end of it. I think it was more the previous governor, but it was all those tobacco money that we got, $50 million a year, that the state was using to pump into businesses. Now, of course, I think that's all pretty much gone. Do we need something like that where the state gets more heavily involved than they have been?
I don't necessarily know if I think that's required, because to be open with you, governments are not good at picking winners and losers. That's not a good strong suit for government. I think it's really helping create the infrastructure for these things to happen. And that's where I think there's an opportunity. Again, if you look at the COVID crisis, I think this is a case where you're going to find people in New York and the Bay Area, these big areas, that look at Google and some of these companies saying they can work remotely now for the next year, essentially, if not longer. That's where we need to be drawing these people to Michigan. I mean, if you had a choice between being in a congested skyscraper versus being on the shoreline of a Great Lake, which one are you going to choose?
I know Matt would choose Traverse City. So
yeah. Well, I think that's a big opportunity that we should be leveraging the great resources we have to get people to learn how to do this more remotely and to work those places. Because again, I think they're great growth opportunities.
Yeah, and it's really having an impact on the commercial office market. So there's so many buildings now that are only partly full, or however you want to say that. But the companies are evaluating, do I really need office space anymore when people can work from home? So
yeah, that dynamic has changed dramatically, and I don't think it's going to go back to just what it was before.
No.
Yeah. And I think you might start seeing more of what you saw in Midtown Detroit and downtown Detroit, where you have office space that's abandoned and is eventually converted to residential. I mean, like the David Scott building, places like that in downtown Detroit. I think you might start seeing some of that in suburbia too. So
yeah, I think you nailed that. I was talking to some real estate people recently, and that I believe was the trend, to say instead of traditional office, it's going to be live workspace, where literally you're going to maybe have your apartment and then a connected office. And again, get collections of those people doing it in that environment. I mean, because that's where it's great what you can do now and the different ways you can communicate.
We've only got a little over a minute left. I know you do your Thursday column on Facebook because I read that there. If someone wants to reach out to you, I know you don't want to give up your phone number or your email address necessarily, but have them contact Allison, or what would you advise?
Yeah, Allison's great. She still runs my professional life, and a good spot's LinkedIn too. I'm on LinkedIn and I have a lot of connections there. So that's an easy one to connect. I've actually started the Thursday columns now, a newsletter on LinkedIn.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so Allison Scott, what's I know I contacted her to reach out to you. So what's her email address again?
Yeah, it's Allison at rpaction.tech, TECH.
Okay.
I didn't want to be another .com. I had to be a .tech. Got to have some fun.
Of course. And just before everyone goes, I want to blame everything on Rick in the sense of when I was at the Free Press trying to figure out what to do next, I met with him and he talked me into starting M2Tech News. So I blame you for that.
Well, it's great to see success.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years now. I don't know anything else.
20-some years
right?
later, yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, we just have different hair colors than we had back then.
Yes, I didn't have all this traces of gray in mine. I think yours is a tad darker as well.
Well, I actually had hair back then. So.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. I'm glad you're doing this show because, again, you're helping create that ecosystem for success for entrepreneurship and innovation.
All right, former Governor Rick Snyder, thanks for being with us. Maybe we can get you on the show again later this year. What do you think?
Oh, happy to be with you guys. We go way back. Happy to keep that going.
Okay, thanks very much. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more of M2Tech TV. This is Mike Brennan.
And it's Matt Roush.
And we hope you're watching live on Facebook.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University?
All right,
thanks. Great to be with you.
Great labs.
Take care.
All right.
Professors.
Well, I'll get you the. I'll send it to Allison.
Athletics and all the software you need to succeed.
There she is.
Be smart.
Hey.
At LTU.
And waiting. And there he is. Okay. I haven't seen you in a while, Brian. How are you?
Of any university in America.
Can you hear me?
Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors.
Is he muted?
Brian is still connecting to audio, Mike.
LTU.
Come on. There we go. Now he's in.
Lawrence Technological University graduates earn a degree and a higher starting salary. In fact, when it comes to earning potential, the Brookings Institution ranks LTU 5th among U.S. colleges and universities.
Oh, now we can hear him.
Be more at LTU.
Right.
Possible.
Commercial.
Everything.
Salaries of Lawrence
10 seconds left.
among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait?
I'll start it off.
Now more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast. We have longtime, gosh, I guess we could almost call her an M2Techcast contributor, you know, like they do on the cable news shows. Kathleen Norton-Schock is with us today, and she has a guest.
Thanks, guys, very much for this opportunity. As I hinted last month when you had me on for our normal Women in Tech segment, I'd like to this time go out of the box, go out of my normal box and segue to another topic for a variety of reasons. And that topic will be social media channels, the law and the First Amendment, and some other things having to do with the law and technology. As you know, Diva Tech Talk, which is my 5-year passion project that I co-founded with Nicole Scheffler, took a small hiatus beginning in June, which we will end in September for a variety of reasons. One of them was Nicole is about to have a baby in September, and she just wrote a chapter in a book, and she's busy with Cisco. But on top of that, my interest, a lot of things were happening in my life. And one of them, my personal schedule, was severely impacted by something, a venal SLAPP, S-L-A-P-P lawsuit, in which, quite frankly, I was unjustly embroiled. SLAPP, as I have come to learn, is an acronym for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. They are, by the way, illegal in 30 of 50 states, but in our lovely state of Michigan, we haven't gotten around yet to banning them. So, as I hinted last month, there's a backstory. I live in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. And in this election year, 2 of the town's supposed leaders, its supervisor and treasurer, in a Machiavellian political move, chose to bring a $9 million slap against a social media channel called Next Door Neighborhood, for whom I am just one of hundreds of volunteers in Oakland County, because they lost a 2019 vote for tax funding and perceived that there was a growing body of opposition to their draconian tactics and non-transparent method of governing. And that, of course, is my opinion. But of course, I'm entitled to my opinion as a citizen and a taxpayer. As part of their political machinations, they named 2 townships citizens in this egregious proceeding, and I was one of them. Every single assertion in the suit, which was filed in May 2020 about me, was an outright lie. I've been paying taxes in Bloomfield Township for 34 years, and even though they get it right on the tax rolls, in the lawsuit, they couldn't even spell my name right. This just shows you how sloppy the whole thing was. So to say that this was extremely disturbing would be an understatement. That's the bad news. The good news is that this profound distress led my co-defendant, Valerie Murray, and I to brilliant legal counsel, my guest today, Brian Wassam. Brian is a partner, as you guys both know, at Warner Norcross and Judd. And he's truly a futurist at heart. He's globally recognized as a thought leader in cutting-edge legal issues raised by such things as augmented reality and cloud-based emerging media channels. He regularly publishes blogs. He speaks on these topics to industry groups, legal seminars, and conferences across the country. He's also a published book author. I personally, once we found his background and the interactions I was fortunate enough to have with him since May, fascinating. And so with your permission, I'm going to ask him to educate our audience just a little about his tech law specialties. So thanks for joining us, Brian, and thanks for winning our case by getting this spurious slap suit dismissed on August 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this and to contribute to vindicating these First Amendment rights like we got the chance to do in this lawsuit. And of course, thanks to Mike and Matt for having me back on. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about your specialties? First of all, from Valerie's and my perspective, and by the way, my co-defendant was Valerie Murray, who's running as a Democrat for Bloomfield Township trustee. First time, she's not a politician. She's a first-time candidate. She has a strong, long history in the township. And like an entire group of people who have become activists over the last 3 years, she saw a lot of things wrong. So for the first time in her life, she's running for office. So Brian, we were very lucky that another friend referred us to you. Can you tell me why, from my perspective, you were the ideal lawyer to defend Valerie and I? Do you agree with me on that? And why would you say that was?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this, but go ahead.
Well, you as we've well established, Kathleen, you are entitled to your opinion, and far be it from me to restrain you from exercising it. You've been gracious to withhold your opinion from the public square during the pendency of this lawsuit, and I know that was a challenge, but you're free to now. But so I would not go so far as to characterize myself as ideal. I would say that I was qualified, and certainly pitch myself as ideal to any potential candidates. But in any event, I have been incredibly fortunate over my 20-year legal career thus far to have had the opportunity to work under the wings of senior lawyers with a lot of First Amendment and related not only experience, but litigation for me to work in, and to gain that experience myself firsthand in a number of different FOIA and media law and First Amendment and copyright related lawsuits, and you got that opportunity to build out. That's not something that is a common specialty here in Michigan. It might be in larger media markets, but here in Michigan, I've been fortunate enough to become one of a handful of lawyers that really have a resume in doing this kind of thing.
So I characterized you as a futurist, and I really do believe that, just based on our conversations and the background research I was able to do on you. So tell me, what emerging technology have you been concentrating on lately from a legal perspective?
Okay.
In other words, I'm sure there are people besides me and Valerie and a lot of other people and a lot of other cases you've worked on that have legal implications that are directly related to technology. Can you talk a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, well, Mike and Matt know this too, because they've been good enough to have me on before to talk about some of this. And one area of technology that's really captured my fascination over the last decade is that of augmented reality. It goes by a few other names now: XR, mixed reality. There's more names than success stories so far in the industry, but it's one that has been bubbling up slowly but surely over the last decade, and really is poised to launch us forward in an order of magnitude expansion here in the very near future. And when I talk about augmented reality, I talk about the technology that projects, or at least gives the illusion to the user of projecting, digital data onto the physical world, and allows us to interact with digital data as if it were there physically in front of us. And we see that sort of thing in movies all the time, going all the way back to movies like Terminator and Minority Report and things of that nature. But it's not something we necessarily recognize unless we stop to think about it. But you know, the rumor mill always escalates this time of year before the Apple technology show about when Apple's going to come out with smart glasses, like some other startup companies have done. And the answer is soon. Apple and Google and Niantic and other companies that are on the forefront of this sort of technology are poised to put our smartphones in our glasses, and that, I think, is something that's going to make a big impact in how we use technology.
So you probably haven't had a time, given your very busy schedule, to listen to any of our 100 or so Diva Tech Talk podcasts. But everybody who's been an interviewee for me, and these guys know it quite well, I always like to know the backstory. Why did you choose to specialize in technology law? And what do you think are the top 3 hot areas? You already talked about augmented reality and Google Glass, but what are the top 3 hot areas in addition to that that will inspire litigation as it relates to technology and or as it relates to freedom of speech?
All right. Well, real briefly on the background question, like I said, I got a really unique opportunity to be exposed to media type law. But it became quickly apparent to me that the type of media that I kind of cut my teeth on representing, which was newspapers here in town, one of the biggest papers here and media outlets here in town, people aren't going to buy newspapers very much longer, and that has certainly become the case. And so I needed to direct my energy for the next 20, 30 years of my career on media that was up and coming. And that's what led me to not only augmented reality, but other forms of digital media. I was, back 10 years ago, one of the first lawyers to really jump on the bandwagon of social media as something that had importance and would have a lot of legal consequences. That certainly has panned out in our case, among many others. But looking forward to technology-related litigation. So, as Mike knows, I handled a case a couple years ago involving a regulation in Wisconsin that attempted to regulate Pokemon Go and other location-based augmented reality games. And that turned out to be the first case to uphold First Amendment rights, specifically in the augmented reality space. And that was striking down that law as an unconstitutional restriction of speech in the augmented reality arena. And that already kind of broke the seal on litigation in that space. But I think in terms of the rest of the broader augmented reality space, I think advertising and disputes over whether I can put my ad on your property or make it seem like it's on your property is just something that companies speak to me about on a regular basis. And they're very sensitive to the idea that somebody else could make use of their physical space for digital advertising in ways that they don't approve of. So that is an area, that's an example of the motto of following the money, right? If people are putting money into advertising, their commercial reputation is very much something that is worth money to them. So it's something that is going to be worth fighting over in litigation. And it's augmented and digital advertising, I think, will lead to that sort of litigation. Second, I'd say privacy. None of this technology, whether it's on your face or in other sorts of displays, none of it really works without cameras. And so look at the number of cameras we have in society now compared to a generation ago. It's an order of magnitude higher. I think it will be another order of magnitude higher 10 years, 20 years from now. The ability to digitally surveil will only increase. And so with that comes disputes over privacy and the creepiness factor involved in that. Now I'm starting to handle invasion of privacy claims with drones with flying around with cameras. We're going to see much more of that sort of thing. And then the third is an area of law that kind of is another offshoot of my specialty in media practice, and it's one that I've had a chance to litigate and will only be litigated more. And that's an area of law called the right of publicity, which is an individual person's right to control the commercial exploitation of their identity or their likeness. That's something we see originally in billboard advertising, magazine advertising, that sort of thing. Now we see it all the time in social media contexts and in other digital forms, because ultimately, we are a social species and we like to talk about ourselves and about each other. And so the expression that we're going to be publishing in the digital space is going to be about ourselves and about other people. And so our ability to control the use of our likenesses, the use of our identities in that space is going to be increasingly important and increasingly litigated over.
I'm afraid we're going to have to... Yeah, go ahead, man. I was going to cut him off too. So
yeah, right. Sorry, we've reached the end of the 15-minute segment. Obviously, we've got to have you both back for a half-hour segment sometime. Because this is a fascinating topic, and I didn't even get to ask the question that I wanted to ask about artificial intelligence and where you see that going as relates to all this.
Hey, we'll save that one for you, Brian, when you come back and tell us another, brilliant lawyer thing. So.
And where can people reach you, Brian?
WNJ.com, Warner Norcross and Judd. That's my law firm.
And how about your book?
Book called, got Augmented Reality Law, Privacy and Ethics. Also got a book from a faith perspective called What Would Jesus Post on social media.
And they're available through Amazon?
That's right.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Well, we have to, we're going to go to commercial. Thanks very much, Kathleen. Brian, we'll get you back on the show here to maybe in another month, and you can kind of continue
thanks
on.
for saving me $9 million, Brian.
Yes, that's a good thing, right?
I didn't have it anyway.
Thank you all.
All right. Well, we'll be right back. This is Mike Brennan.
And Matt Roush.
And you've been watching M2Tech TV.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Kathleen.
University
Brian.
You're not only marketable, you're worth more. Yes, more. According to PayScale.com,
Hopefully Fred's there,
when it comes
right?
to graduate
Nope,
salaries,
haven't seen him yet.
LTU is in America's top 100. Be invaluable. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University? Everything. Great labs and studios, supportive professors, plus a full campus life, NAIA athletics, and all the software you need to succeed. Be smart. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest
Just
of
text
any
him here. See
university
what
in
happens.
America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Lawrence Technological University graduates earn a degree and a higher starting salary. In fact, when it comes to earning potential, the Brookings Institution ranks LTU 5th among U.S. colleges and universities. Be enriched. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at LTU.
He's having some technical difficulties.
As a Lawrence Technological University graduate, you're not only marketable, you're worth more. Yes, more. According to PayScale.com, when it comes to graduate salaries, LTU is in America's top 100. Be invaluable.
Hey, there he is.
Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Okay,
Hey.
a longer commercial break than what we typically have, but LTU is thankful because we ran that ad about 4 times.
And we have with us today our resident epidemiologist and infectious disease expert, Fred Brown. Fred, we only have 15 minutes today, so we got to keep it real tight. What's the latest in terms of the pandemic?
Well, of course, the big announcement yesterday with President Trump. I almost said Dr. Trump with the expansion, the emergency use authorization for plasma therapy. And you remember that was one of the therapies that I thought early on was going to be helpful, but I'm not sure about this particular use of the emergency use authorization. I'm a little bit concerned about it for some reasons. We can certainly go into that if you like.
Yeah, let's go into that because I'm sure that's on everyone's mind, and certainly during the Republican convention this week, I'm sure they'll be talking about that. So give us your perspective on this.
Yeah, so I mean, it is not a knockout punch. What it means is that if you are infected with COVID and you're hospitalized and having challenges, what they've done is they've used data from the Mayo Clinic. They had about 37,000 total patients across 2,800 different sites. And what they found was that if you had a significant IgG or significant component of dose of plasma therapy, then your survival rates would be improved by about 2.5 to 3%. So it's not it goes from your death rate goes from 8.5%, so from 11.5% 2% to 8.5%, with significant amounts of plasma therapy. And there is a dose response that's indicative of some help. Unfortunately, what was quoted during the press release was a 35% reduction in overall death rate, and that's not right. The overall death rate reduction is only 2%. The relative reduction across two populations, both treated with plasma therapy, is about 35%. But don't forget, we didn't try it compared to nothing. And what's interesting is we have results from clinical trials in both the Netherlands and China that indicate that when you compare it to doing nothing, there is no statistical significance, sadly, and there is some risk of course, infection and other things as a result of going through a transfusion with using a convalescent plasma. I think, though, that if we do enough studies and we understand the dosing, that we will find some positive benefit. But I'm concerned for about a couple things. I'm a drug developer, and what happens whenever you whenever you say to people, it's now available commercially, but by the way, there's also a chance to take part in this clinical trial, and you've got a 50% chance of either getting the drug or not getting the drug. People are going to say, give me the drug, forget the clinical trial. So the result of that is that our chances of actually completing a lot of the trials that we have underway get significantly reduced. And there are a whole host of trials underway. There's probably 15, 20 trials that are properly and statistically and methodologically correct in order to actually determine whether this is the case or not. Right now, we're just using anecdotal evidence of people saying, that guy looks pretty sick, we better give him some drug. And then afterwards saying, oh, we had some success. That's not a prospective, controlled, randomized clinical trial, which had a placebo and control group. That is what we really look for to make the standard work. And so the result of that is that if you look, as doctors, what you do is you go to the Infectious Disease Society of America and you look at their treatment protocols, and you go to the NIH and look at their treatment protocols, and neither of those societies, which doctors actually follow, have changed their treatment protocol recommendations. And that's because we just don't have the evidence right now that we would normally ask as physicians to have in order to treat people with this kind of a therapy.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Fred, in the scary headline department, is we learned last night from the New York Times, authorities in Hong Kong have reported their first case of reinfection. Somebody had it before and had the antibodies and then got it again. So what does that tell us?
Yeah, so it is possible. It is possible, and that it is reinfection, and we're still struggling with it. We saw that initially in Korea, where they had a significant number of cases called quote unquote reinfected. We think a lot of those were just sequestered and kind of disease that was hiding away in various locations that we hadn't tested and were sheltered from a blood test or a saliva test. And that happens often, so it comes back. Well, we're finding that this is a very pernicious disease, and that you can get low levels of titer for a long time that are undetectable and then pop up 2-3 months later. So we're not sure if it's reinfection. That's really disappointing, because it means that antibody levels of people who have been infected aren't sufficient to prevent you from getting the disease again. And that's what we're really looking for in effective vaccines. So that would suggest that a vaccine might not be fully effective, and that it might not be have a very long duration. Right now, our best guess is that you've got some protection for 3 months. That's as long as we've been able to test so far, because the antibody's still novel. If we're like MERS and SARS, then you could get as much as 2 to 4 years of protection. That's what we're really hoping for with a vaccine. But those kinds of results indicate that's doubtful for this particular, for COVID-19, sadly.
So it keeps getting back to the vaccine. Is there any vaccine update you can give us? I know it's only been a week, but I mean, has anything changed?
Oh, lots. So believe it or not, last time, 2 weeks ago, when the last time it was reported, and you're watching the enrollment rates of this vaccine go up, right? And 2 weeks ago, when we talked about this last time, there were about 4,500 people enrolled in the 30,000 person study for Moderna, and about 2,750, as I recall, enrolled in Pfizer. Believe it or not, collectively, Moderna and Pfizer now have enrolled 25,000 patients.
Wow.
So it's gone up 20,000 patients in 2 weeks. That's remarkable. I mean, I do a lot of work in enrollment management for clinical trials. I mean, to get 20,000 in 2 weeks that's just unheard of. It's a huge. They're out there, and people are eager to volunteer, and they're recruiting heavily, which is great.
Good. And clearly, until we do get an effective vaccine, whatever that might be, whatever the new normal is going to be, we don't even know that. I mean, do you suspect, even if we get a vaccine, that we're never going to go back to the way everything was before the pandemic? Do you think there'll still be changes?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think sadly, I think what's going to happen is that our initial vaccines will be partially effective, and we'll have some therapies that are partially effective. But we're going to have to continue to monitor the disease and manage the disease, patient by patient if we're lucky. If not, we're doing it on a population basis right now, but patient by patient, probably for at least 10 years. I don't see us going back to a quote unquote normalcy with that until we get a fully sanitizing vaccine or a significant change in the virulence of the disease. That's what killed off, quote unquote, killed off Spanish flu, is that it mutated enough that it became kind of part of the endemic flu problem, not something special. And if that happens with COVID, if there's something that happens with the nature of the virus itself that we don't really control, frankly, then that could cause us to go back to normal. More likely, we will have a sanitizing vaccine. My sense is that's at least 10 years away.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a ways. We have a ways to go, and I think that means a lot of testing, a lot more testing. Probably what will happen is we'll test ourselves every day. Self-administered, very rapid, very inexpensive, and those tests will be coming out in the next 3 to 5 months, and everybody should, be on the lookout for them and start trying them out. Because
that's the saliva test you're talking about that I heard about this week.
That's right, the saliva test. There's one in Boston, there's one in Yale, there's one in Stanford. They're all starting to look relatively interesting. What we're finding is that we need to have, in order to do this what's happened is our society just doesn't lend itself well to centralized clinical testing and all the transport and the slow turnaround times. And the high cost of our current testing infrastructure. So we have to look for disruptive technologies, and the disruptive technologies that are out there include, breathing technologies coming out of Israel called NA nasal, as I recall. There's a group. There's the E group in Boston that's using strips of silver coated paper that changes quite sensitively to drug. There's a special LISPR technology that's coming out of Stanford that's actually probably going to be the most likely candidate in a longer term scenario. And then there are instances where you can use existing technology with very, very fast turnarounds. That's what's happening at University of Illinois. They've got a full setup of several $1 million PCR machines at University of Illinois that that are able to test 10,000 people a day. You need three of them, running 24 hours, and that costs $10 a test. And you got to be right on site with that technology. What we need to have is something that's instant, self-administered, that's quite accurate to the PCR level if possible, very fast. So instant means less than 10 minutes, I would say, and cheap. We have to get kind of below a dollar.
Yeah, that. Yeah, right.
Oh, that part of it. Yeah. So right now, if you look at all the tests, nothing is available right now that we have that are all three of those things. So you got all five of those fit all those five of those criteria. So we're going to have to actually look for new ways of testing, and those systems are coming out, as I said, in 3 to 6 months.
And then finally, I will realize we ran out of time. I know one of the things we were going to talk about, and I've got to put that link up, is how to properly wash your hands.
Right.
I don't know if you have that link available. You can show us.
I do. I think I've got it. Let me take a look if I can find it.
If nothing else, that's what we can do right now, is wash our hands properly, right?
It's one of the tricks. So,
well, you basically have to wash like you're prepping for surgery, right? You have to wash like the doctors do before surgery.
Well, there are two levels of washing. There are two levels. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
There are two levels of washing. One is clean and one is surgical. Surgical actually means, septic level capability. That's a 2-minute wash. It's up your sleeves and everything. We're just talking about clean levels of hand washing, which you want to, first you wet your hands with water so that you get then you put your soap on it. It should be about a teaspoon of soap generally. You can look at the instructions. That's about right. It's better probably for liquid soap than normal soap, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter if it's antibiotic or not either, as it turns out. Everything kills it, kills this virus pretty easily. You want to rub your hands together around the palm, as it shows, right? Then you want to get the backs of your fingers in between your fingers, and you want to scrub your palms. And you want to get your thumb, and you want to go down your wrists, because everything that's exposed is exposed to droplets. Then you want to rinse your hands with water. And that's really important, because what the soap does, hydrophilic and hydrophobic interactions, is it pulls the virus away from the oils in your skin with a lot of rinsing off. Rinse off for, everyone says 20 seconds, do it for 30 seconds. If you don't have any soap, then antiseptic is okay. The antiseptic cleanser and alcohol level should be above 70%. It's not the same as hand washing. Hand washing is better. When you dry your hands, use a disposable paper towel. Don't that's not exposed to the water and that you can't sneeze on. And then use that same same towel to turn off the water, open the garbage can, put it in, and after you've opened the door to exit the bathroom. And you should probably be doing this 5 times a day or so if you're at an office, and do it every time you've touched something that's a surface that's frequently touched, so high touch surfaces, after you've shaken somebody's hand, after you sneezed or coughed yourself, and certainly after you go to the bathroom. That's sort of the way to do it. And what you'll find is that what people forget, the biggest areas of forgetfulness are the palms, inside your palms, tips of your fingers, and around your thumb are areas, and in between your fingers are the ones that people forget. Usually what this does is it'll reduce the possibility of infection by about 23 to 48%, so good reduction. Don't forget, kind of this touching, you touch your face 15, 16 times an hour. Try to reduce that if you can by using something that's perfumed. It reminds you, I've got something close to my face again. Try to use a soap that has some humectants and some emollients in it. Humectants are things like glycerin, honey, and those kinds of things. Emollients are things like aloe. Those replace the water after, because your high alcohol content reducing the oils in your skin cause dryness, especially if you're washing 5 times a day. So those are some of the hints I've got for you.
All right, and we're going to post this link when we put Fred's video up online. We'll have the link there too, so you can take a look at it and make sure you're doing it properly.
Yep, this is the WHO and CDC official diagrams. It's up on all the labs, so that's what we use.
All right, and that's Fred Brown, our epidemiologist. He's on with us every week, and updates us, and hopefully doesn't scare us too much. But this is really, I wouldn't say a scary time, but it's a very cautious time, right?
It is, and I added that to the mask stuff. If you touch your face mask, that's where all the droplets are. Wash your hands afterwards. If you've taken off your mask properly, take it off from the sides. One last reminder. So and you'll kill off about, with an average hand washing, you'll kill off about 60% of the germs. If you do it this way, you'll kill off 99% of the germs, especially with a 30-second rinse.
Okay. Fred Brown.
All right, thanks very much, Fred Brown.
FredBrown.com. I'm sorry, Matt. I stepped on you there.
That's all right. Well, we'll have to leave it there for now. We'll be back again next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with another edition of the M2Techcast at mitechnews.tv. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you've been watching at mitechnews.tv, Facebook Live, and hopefully a whole bunch of other places. Have a great week, everybody.
Hey, I forgot to mention that there is a